We do have Bobby on electronic presence. I see we have an invocation. Do we have anybody that's doing invocation? In that
No,
case,
sir.
let's do our moment of silence. Please bow your head. Ms. Hebert, will you lead us in the pledge?
Sure. Join me with your hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a section here for public comments. Don't see too much public here. All right, and then we will move into our workshop. Staff, if you'd like to go forward.
Good evening, council members and public. Thank you for coming to the budget workshop this evening. So tonight I'm going to walk us through this slide presentation that is a high summary of the budget. In your packets that were routed, you should have also received a detailed list of all of the projects, the capital projects that we're looking at. So the first couple pages are a summary of the project totals for the next 5 years and the funding sources, and then the back pages, oh, mine are blank. They would show how we prioritize the projects. Oh dear, looks like I didn't do a very good printout, but it showed all the detail behind all of the projects. So some of the projects have a lot of different funding sources, so that's where you'd see the prioritization and all the project details. What you would also find in the packets that were routed before this meeting is all of the funds that the city has, and so that you can see the effect on the fund balances if we adopt and we accept all of these capital projects. The previous budget workshop, we went over the operating expenditures, with the primary expenditure being the personnel costs, which have risen about 35%. We've been watching the cost of living month over month, so that was using the March cost of living, and it's still staying at about 8.5%. So we'll be looking at possibly adjusting that again, because I'm going to recommend that we come back for another budget workshop on July 14th when we have more of our members available. But anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that you noticed that we had, the first few pages are the summaries, and then the back pages are the details. And this is the same packet that was sent out previously for the operating budget, but this packet also included all of the details for each of the capital project funds. So that's what was in your packets that were routed. So now let's just dive right on into the budget slide presentation. Here we start off with the budget process. The only thing we added here is a July 14th budget workshop. So basically, tonight we're going to go through the effect on our bottom line, all the projects that we want to do. We're going to let that sink in a little bit. We're going to look at I just got numbers from the property appraiser. So we put those in so you can see what will happen if we keep our same millage rate, or what would happen if we were to decrease our millage rate or increase it at your discretion. And so I want all of these things to kind of, you'll have some time to think about it for the next couple weeks. We'll have another budget workshop July 14th, and then we'll have time to sit down and do individual budget reviews the last week of July. And then August 1st is when the council needs to make a motion to set that tentative millage rate, because I have to certify that to the property appraiser by August 4th. So that August 1st meeting is when you're going to set that tentative millage rate. After we set that tentative millage rate, we can go down, but we can't go up. So when you set that tentative rate, that's the maximum rate. You can't go down and then come back up. So we'll just keep that in mind as well. There we go. So this is in calendar format, linear format, shows you the timeline that we're on. So now we've jumped forward to the June part on this summarized calendar. We've put this in just to remind everybody of what our objectives are that we've agreed upon at the January 22 visioning session. These are the 3 different types of priorities that we have: critical, important, and desirable. And then these are the objectives classified as critical, important, and desirable. So at the top of the list, we had offering livable wages to our staff, researching viability of an event center, community center. And then we have important priorities: completing the crosstown connector, addressing beachfront access, undergrounding the utilities. And then we also have looking at annexing in some of the unincorporated enclaves throughout the city, looking at a transit system, possibly a trolley system, but also looking at potential for a city marina, and improving parking situations. And beach renourishment is still on the desirable list. Strategic goals: financially sound city, enhance quality of life and safety for our families, economic development, revitalization, effective, efficient, aesthetically pleasing infrastructure, improving mobility and connectivity, and a green and sustainable environment. So these are the updates that I made since the last budget workshop. The last budget workshop, I did not yet have figures from the property appraiser. It turns out that overall, most of the properties throughout the city of Destin have increased in value. So now we're at about $6.9 billion worth of property. Solid waste franchise agreement. At the Monday evening meeting, at the first workshop, I assumed a 6% franchise fee. Monday evening, we agreed to a 3% franchise fee. So that increased our revenues by, so that was a decrease because I had it higher in the previous meeting. And then the sheriff's contract at the previous meeting, I didn't have that figure until the day of the meeting, so that wasn't in there. So these are the updates that were made to the operating side of the numbers that are before you tonight and in your packets. So here's our ad valorem. Taxable property values, as you can see, have risen up above the 2007 level. So we're at a historic high, $6.9 billion. So this is what our ad valorem will look like. So if we stay the course with the 1.6 that we've had since, I think it was 2017, you see our actual that we brought in for the general fund and the 2 CRAs came out to $9.4 million. This year, for next year, for 2023, we'd be looking at $10.6 million. So that's a 12% change for the general fund, a 24% change for the town center CRA, and a 15% increase for the harbor CRA. Over here we have what it looks like if we were to drop our millage rate from a 1.615 down to a 1.51. No, the rollback rate is actually, let's see, I wrote that on here somewhere. So we are looking at a 12.2% increase over the rollback rate. The rollback rate comes in at about 1.45 something. So 1.5 is still just a little bit above that rollback rate.
I'm looking at the slide prior to that one. The 1.6150 millage rate is more than the rolled back rate of 1.4391.
There you go. That's where it is.
12.22%. It's literally on the neck back slide.
Yep.
There it is, the last line. See it? You've got it in there, so thank you.
Yeah, so right here, 1.65 is where we are. The rollback rate is 1.4391.
So basically, without increasing our millage rate, we're still increasing monies because of the value of the city's
That's correct.
Properties here.
That's correct.
Thank you.
That's correct. So this is, the next slide is where we're looking at the difference in ad valorem if we were to drop it down by 1/10 of a mil. Our property values have gone up. 2 years ago, we were at $420,000 was the median property value. Last year, it went up to $475,000. This year, the median property value is at $491,000. So I show here what the average homeowner would be paying in their ad valorem taxes. So if we were to drop it by 1/10 of a mil, that would be $73 less for the year. So if your home is valued at $491,000, you'd pay $792 this year. And if we were to decrease it by 1/10 of a mil, that would be $719 for the year. So on this next slide, we have the effect on our bottom line at the different millage rates. So we're required by law to adopt 95% of the value. We have to budget that. If we were to stay at the 1.61, then 9.7 million goes into the general fund. And then the city's contribution to the CRAs, you've got the town center CRA at $499,000, the harbor CRA at $412,000. And you can see what that is at 1.615 or at 1.515. They're side by side, so you can see what the difference would be. Then we also have the county contributions that go into the CRA areas. The town center CRA is set, the agreement is that they provide whatever their millage rate is. But the harbor CRA, the agreement is they match whatever the city puts in. So if we were to decrease our millage rate, then the county contribution to the harbor CRA would also decrease. So that would, the net effect would be $687,000 less to the city if you drop it by 1 mil, if you look at the whole picture of the city plus the 2 CRAs. And I just like to remind people of the Save Our Home Act. So if your home is your primary residence, you can get the Homestead Exemption on your property, and then that limits how much the property appraiser can raise the taxable value of your home each year. So most of this increase, the 12% that we see in the general city of Destin, that's because homes have turned over. So when a home changes ownership, the tax appraiser can give a different assessed value. But as long as you keep your home, there's a maximum of 3% or the CPI, whichever is less. And just a quick synopsis to remind you from our previous budget workshop, the general fund operating expenses are increasing 22%, and that's primarily because our personnel costs are expected to be at least 30% higher than in previous years. Part of this is because we just did the compensation study and gave people raises. Another part of this is because we have a cost of living policy that we follow the CPI index year over year. I've been watching that index, and it's been hovering at about 8.5%. So we'll find out later in the last half of July, because we use the June over June index, but June numbers don't come out until later in July. We're also working with our benefit providers to look at our healthcare costs, and I budgeted a 7% increase in our healthcare costs, but now I'm starting to hear that they could be higher. We should have more information on that in early July as well. And this is also assuming, it's no secret that we've been understaffed for the past few years. We think part of that is because our salary scales were so low. But I'm optimistic that now that we've adjusted everything, that we'll be able to fill all of those vacant positions. So this 2023 budget assumes that all those positions will be filled. So the bottom line, because that's what everybody really is interested in, is how much general fund money do we have available for capital investment. So with the figures that we have, if we stay at the 1.6 millage rate, then our net increase to fund balance would be $1.7 million. So that is the money that we have after paying all of the operating costs and the increased personnel costs that you could invest into capital improvement programs if you want to keep a neutral budget where you're not dipping into fund balance or adding to the fund balance. You have this 1.7 million to work with. And I've also put on the slide beneath that the general fund we're looking at before we take that $1.7 million and invest it into capital programs. If we don't do anything, then we're going to have a total fund balance of $28 million. 10.3 million of that fund balance we have committed as a group to our reserves. That's the money, it's 1 year's worth of debt service, and it's about 6 months worth of operating money. And I do update those numbers each year when we calculate out the operating. Our committed reserves right now is 10.3 million. So we have $14 million in our fund right now that's unassigned. And this is because there have been a lot of capital projects that we plan to do, but we haven't been able to get contractors in. With the labor shortages and everything else, we haven't been able to get people to come in and do all this work.
Can you jump back? Can you go back one screen real
Sure.
quick, please?
Yep. So, if we take, for my first draft of this budget, I took just over $1.7 million, and here's how I invested it into capital projects. So we still have $10,000 in there to do the annexation study, which hasn't been accomplished yet. The multi-use sports convention event center, that's another $75,000 for a feasibility study that we have not yet committed. So we're moving that forward to next year. Disaster response, this is a new one for hurricane disaster response that I'm recommending, and I have Public Works and our Emergency Services Group support on this. So this is in the event we have a hurricane or some other local disaster, then we will have budgeted already a certain amount that I can commit towards debris removal and cleanup, so that first 2 weeks we can encumber and get those contractors on the road. So we have agreements with these contractors that we update each year, but this is what I think we might need in that first 30 days. The next, we have some network infrastructure repair. As you know, some of our technology is getting a little bit aged while we've been trying to upgrade all of our softwares. I'm going to be working more with our new IT director and with Web, and we're pulling on Matthew to double check the virtual server situation and the network infrastructure repair. So these might go down a little bit before the next meeting. We'll be reviewing that, but this is where they stand today. We have the technology fund, which is a portion of permit fees and things that community development does. So we'll be using they'll be supporting half of it from the technology fund, but the other half is really general government related. So that's why I have some general fund money allocated there. We need a facilities asset management system to make sure that we stay on track with all of our maintenance. FEMA requires us to show maintenance records in order for them to reimburse us. And also it just helps us with planning out our future and how we're going to be replacing things as we go forward. Next, we have the Civic Clerk agenda system upgrade, which is something that you as council members are all very familiar with. Our public might not be as familiar with it, but it's how we make sure everything goes through approval processes before they come to you for the agendas for all of the meetings and the committee meetings. The city Marina feasibility study is another $75,000. That if you're feeling nervous about the budget and you don't want to be dipping into that general fund balance, it's something that you might want to put off a year, or we can try to accomplish it this coming year. The pickleball courts, we've had a bit of resistance, and we're really trying hard to acquire a certain location, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen in time this year for us to bring on a contractor and go forward that this year, so I'm moving that out to next year. Then we have our Clement Taylor Park renovations. The grant from Restore, which is through the Okaloosa County Board of County Commissioners, $729,000, has a match requirement of $35,000. So there's where we have some general fund money allocated there. And then the Renewal and Replacement Program, I'm projecting that we're going to have a fund balance of $1.3 million. As you recall, a couple years ago, we invested $2 million to get that kicked off. A lot of this, the detailed projects in here are related to the Renewal and Replacement Program. For example, the stage at the community center has holes in it. The windows are leaky and they're causing mold issues. So in these details are all the things that our staff feel are vital to address and fix in this coming year. So those are the funds that are dedicated to the Renewal and Replacement Program. So that's the 1.8 million of the 1.7 I just showed you that we would be increasing fund balance by if we keep that 1.6 million. This is how staff is proposing that we spend that. So council members need to discuss, what you think, which ones you think are critical, if you want to stay this course, or if you want to reduce something. I need some recommendations from the public and from the council members on what you would propose that we would decrease.
The $10,000 set aside for the annexation study, what are we really trying to study? Whether we want them to come in or they want to come in?
Webb can answer that. He's been researching this a lot.
Yes, we did reserve 10,000. We were unsure. I know that on exactly what some of the details of this study would require specifically legally and things like that. We have not spent any of that as of yet. I know Mr. Zanguzzi is working on some annexation procedures that we should be bringing forth here in the next month or so. But as of yet, we do not have anything specific for the annexation study. I think we will have better direction on that after we have our next agenda item.
If I could jump in for just a second, honestly, during my review, I missed one thing that I want to make a correction on is under the multi-use convention center, it's got 75 allocated there, but council did ask us to move that into council contingency, so there's not 75 there. So that's my correction there.
No, this is next year. We took it out of 22. We didn't do it for 2022, but this is what's proposed for next year in case they wanted us to do it next year instead.
Okay, so that's available for council to look at and determine if they want to leave that in there too then.
Well, it's available, but if it's in council contingency, it doesn't come out without the council saying so.
Right, and I think if I understood what she just said when she corrected me, which is, that's good, is that is still there, but she put an additional 75 in for the next year, so. Is that
So we have
correct?
a 75,000 contingency, and then we have the 75,000 in addition set up for next year. So really it could be 150?
No.
No.
You have 75,000 in the 22 budget, which expires on September 30th. So this 75,000 is in case you want to go forward with that project next year. Or maybe you don't want to do it next year. Maybe you want to push that out another year. But the 75,000 that's in the 22 budget for this year, that budget expires September 30th, and it doesn't roll forward automatically unless it's encumbered by a contract. It just falls into the fund balance.
I have a quick question. I don't know why on God's green earth we would need $75,000 or anything to do a city Marina feasibility study. It just seems like if you got a ranch in Montana, we don't want to do a feasibility study to see if we need a place to put cattle. That doesn't, I don't know where that come from or how it got there. I'm sure it got there somehow. Council put it there, but
That's
That just
right.
doesn't make any sense to me at
At
all.
one of the visioning sessions, this was marked as a high priority item, that we look into city marina and look into placement, and also a feasibility study to see if it would pay for itself. But other than that, since that visioning session, we haven't had a council direction to actually go out and pursue this. So the money's just been sitting there in the budget unspent, just,
I just want to say that was that was something I was really excited about at my first visioning session, which happened to be 2 visioning sessions ago. I didn't understand how this whole thing worked. I still am trying to get an idea of how it works. I assumed that based on it being a priority for us, that I didn't understand at the time that we needed to give direction further. I have since run the numbers and not stopped thinking about this. The kind of money that a city marina generates is, I don't want to say it makes an outrageous amount of sense to have it if there's a place to do it. And I think I know this isn't what we're here to talk about necessarily, but everybody said, well, there's nowhere to do it, you know? Well, there was no beach access either, and we tore those houses down. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if it needs to be $75,000, but if someone wants to sit down and let me show you what the numbers look like for what that kind of operation would generate a month and a year, it would blow your mind. I'll try to put that together and have it at one of the next council meetings. I don't know if it needs to be $75,000 to do a feasibility study, but I think it needs to stay on our radar for sure.
If you can get us those numbers, can you do it for 75,000?
I'll do it for 75,000. So whoever wants to cut, no, I'm kidding. Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think it's more than just coming up with the numbers, obviously. It's a matter of, but can anybody explain where
it's
that?
also coming up with the location. Where would it potentially be? And somebody would also need to be involved in acquiring the location for the city and getting it all set up and going, so, yep.
I'm sorry, this is Webb. Mr. Wagner is online. He has his hand up. I don't know if he wanted to speak.
Yes, I didn't know if that was going to be a thing or not.
Yeah, we can't see your hand very well.
I know. I figured you guys didn't. I was hoping someone online might see it. I didn't want to barge in. If we're done with the marina, are we done with the marina talk? Because I got another line item I'd like to ask about a question.
Do you have other questions? Yeah, I was just going to note before we went forward, the reason we put the 75,000 into council contingency is so it would not be spent without this kind of a discussion taking place. Bobby, if you have something else, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. For the facilities, is that in conjunction with what we're doing with Matrix this summer as far as they're getting the information? Is this kind of phase 2 of that information, or is this something separate?
No, that's the cost of implementing the asset software. So yes, it is related to what Matrix is doing this summer. They're going through and they're reviewing the conditions of all of our facilities, but one of their tasks is to make a renewal and replacement suggested program for us, and then they're also we would like them to enter in the data on all of the facilities into this new software, but we can't purchase the software until we complete other software upgrades that are scheduled for this fall. So that's why the facilities software was scheduled for this coming year.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, so I'll let you guys just, think about that. We're going to come back to this slide at the end so that you can think about it some more and just make sure that, just to think about, do you want to spend less? Do you want to cross something off the list? Do you want to push it out to the future? Do you want to add something to this list? So we'll come back to this slide at the end. So I just wanted to give you a little peek into our long-range capital planning as well. So we have some I have my funding sources going down along one side, and then we've got some of our major capital projects going along the top. And out on the far side, I have estimated like how much, let's see, what are some of these funding sources? For example, the Okaloosa half penny money from that surtax. We updated how we're going to be spending that money. So I have projected out, we'd like to spend another $629,000 of that this, hopefully in August or September, to complete the acquisition at the Crystal Beach. We're hoping that'll, keep moving forward, and we'll accomplish that before September. And then fall of 2023, potentially, as early as that, maybe we could do an RFP about a year, 15 months from now, to get a contractor to start the undergrounding program. That might be a little aggressive, but it's better to have it budgeted in so we don't have to do a budget hearings. And then I have so you can just see how I've got the Okaloosa penny money going out. So I'm keeping track of how we're going to spend it going forward in life. And then we've got funding from the Okaloosa County, the Board of County Commissioners, scheduled out for the next foreseeable future. Some of these programs we're planning on just doing pay-go as the cash builds up. Then we'll be spending the funds. Public Works and Safety Committee, we allocated about $800,000 of Okaloosa half penny money to them. So I've allocated that out. I'm assuming that they're going to have available about $100,000 a year. They have some money built up in there already. Electric franchise fee, you can see I'm dedicating that to the undergrounding program and so forth. So this is just a sneak peek at the long-term plan, because some of these projects are going to take way more than 5 years. And now we're getting into the 5-year capital budget, and here's the budget summary. So this is by major category. Oh, I'm going backwards on my hand notes here. So as you can see, at this moment in time, we have about $47 million worth of projects that we would like to accomplish. And, but I'm short, funding source to be determined. I'm short by about $885,000. We have some grant requests out in the open, but I'm either going to have to cut $885,000 of projects from this list or move them out to the future, unless I'm lucky enough to be awarded some grants before we adopt the budget, because I won't adopt funding to be determined. And then here's a visual picture on what it's looking like. So the uses, right here, this is 83% of this proposed budget is towards those top council priorities. So this is the crosstown connector and the beach acquisition and so forth. We're going to look at the details on the next page. Then we have about 7% is the renewal and replacement program to address some of these things that are falling apart throughout the city. That includes our road program, which is about $1 million a year that we do, repaving, restriping. And then there's some other projects that are on the list, a lot of which are grant funded. And then down here, this other chart that we have, this one down here, that purple is the grant funding that we've accomplished, that we've been awarded. That's going to go towards paying for these projects. So most of the funding for these capital projects is coming from grants. And then we have some impact fee money that has built up. So the state of Florida has a rule with impact fees. You have to spend them within 10 years or give them back to the developers. The city of Destin adopted a more stringent rule. You have to spend them within 6 years. So we have one of these slides. I'll show you what's at risk, but the number is going to grow as we go out to 2024, 2025. We also have some other special revenues, and then $3.3 million of general fund. Okaloosa half penny. And we have some, we as a council have made some resolutions to restrict, for example, parking fees. So that's another special revenue because it's not in the general fund anymore. It's only to address parking issues in the city, including repaving the existing paid parking areas that we have.
Just a quick question, and maybe for our attorney, the fact that we adopted 6 years rather than the state standard of 10 years, is there any reason why we can't go back to the 10-year standard?
I don't believe so, but I'd have to see in what way we adopted that standard, whether it was by ordinance. I don't know if Lewis knows or Crystal, if you know off the top of your head, but I'm sure that we could go back to the 10 years if we need to.
Rather than lose the money, that might be the course to take.
Yeah, and the percent interest that we agreed to pay it back with is pretty steep. So we might want to readdress that as well. 4% per year? Yeah.
I don't know, did it?
Yeah, I'm going to guess, just by the way it was written, I'm going to guess those were adopted back in the 80s when things were booming. Yeah, it's been a while since we've had interest rates like that. 5-year capital projects. So looking at the council-directed projects in particular, so these are the ones that are the high priority. So this is 83% of our 5-year capital project budget. Crosstown Connector, beach acquisition, multi-use convention center, undergrounding, the city marina, and the annexation study. So that's what's on the list right now is the council top priorities.
If I might ask you quickly about 1 or 2 of them. The undergrounding, we have, 12.5 million, and then we have 11 million, and as we go on out, we run up to $50 million, right?
That's correct.
And that's to get through phase what?
4.
Okay, and of course, we don't have 50 million yet, do we?
Actually, I'm going to go into some of those details here for
Okay, I'll wait.
Yeah, actually, it's the next slide. Here we
Okay.
go. So this is looking just at 2023. But so far we have, right, so each phase is estimated to be, there are 7 total phases. Each phase is estimated to be about $13 million. Because some places are larger and more dense, but they already have some neighborhoods undergrounded. Other places are just super complex, like the Highway 98 corridor. So those phases are smaller, but also they try to keep it down into $13 million chunks. So far for next year, let's see, what do we have here? For the undergrounding, we have the electric franchise fee, which falls under impact and restricted type of funds. And we have 1.9 million dedicated from the Okaloosa halfpenny, which we have in cash right now. And then we've been talking to the 2 CRAs. They're in the process of writing or amending their master plans. And so we've asked the 2 CRAs for some funding, but we haven't had a quorum to come to an actual number yet, but I'm hoping that it'll come close to the 6.5 million that we have here. And then we have $725,000 of funding to be determined that would get us up to that 12.5 million for next year. In the future years, I've just projected out based on the electric franchise fee agreement, and then also the commitment for the Okaloosa halfpenny that we've come to, that we've adjusted. And I've estimated out, because rates are increasing, I don't think I'm going to get lucky and get another 1% loan again. So I'm estimating super conservatively, assuming a 5% rate. So, hoping that we'll come in lower for the future years, but we'll see what that's.
So explain to me, where do we end up there? I know what we're getting from the franchise, if you had to bond the money, would create what? Maybe 20 million?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the long-range plan slide for just a second, because I have the the undergrounding on here as well, but I have them each under different, there we go. So for those first 4 phases, I'm dedicating 15 million of Okaloosa half-penny money, about 13 million of the electric franchise, which if we can wait for that fund to grow, then that's less money I have to borrow, so that'll give us more funding. That is a 30-year agreement, and we're estimating that'll bring in about 780, almost 800,000 a year that we can dedicate towards that. The town center CRA, I'm going to be over for the phase 1 and then some more funding for phase 4 because that really gets deeper into the town center CRA. $6 million was my request, and they said, well, let's talk about this some more and maybe we'll give some more, maybe we don't want to do that much. And then we have the town center CRA, okay, so harbor CRA was 6 million. Town center CRA is looking at potentially giving up to 4.5 million. And let's see, what are the other funds? So that is about $50 million right there. Oh, and then we have, no, it's not 50 because I didn't subtract out the to be determined. We have some grant requests in as well. We've got one with the, we're working on the FEMA resiliency program. So we're hoping that that'll help us access some more resiliency funding for the undergrounding. So we have the study first, and then with that study, we should be able to go back to the state to get more funds from there. And we have a state appropriation request in as well. So technically, let me subtract out the to be determined and the grants that are in process that we don't have yet. That's 30 million that we have committed so far. So I need to come up with another 20 million.
Which is 50%. And this is a point that we're all going to have to think about long and hard. 50 million is more than we've spent on capital projects since the city's existence, probably. At some point, we're going to have to decide how many phases we realistically should do, because if we dedicate every bit of the possible capital money we have for the next 20 years to underground utilities, that means we have nothing left for all the other things we have to do. When I talked to Public Works a month ago or so and said, what's it going to take to resurface the roads that need resurfacing right now? They said 13 million. So we need to look at the undergrounding and get a more realistic idea about what we want to do and what we can afford to do, but that'll be at a later workshop.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, we just need to decide how we're going to commit these, because once we get to a certain point and I'm out there shopping around this agreement to borrow, you know, to finance it, I'm going to show them, look, we've got this 30-year revenue stream. Once I do that, it's really difficult to change the purpose for the funds.
Which is exactly why I bring it up, because we're going to have to make a decision soon.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay, let's see, where were we? So here's the overview of the budget. Here we're into the council priority projects. And then this was for next year, some of the funds that we have dedicated and their sources for the council-directed projects. And then just a quick little reminder, some council members are pretty new at this. As you might know, most of the grants that we receive are cost reimbursement basis. They're actually requiring me to submit not just the invoice, but a canceled check to show that that vendor cashed that check, okay? So cost reimbursement, there's a delay. So I try to keep an unassigned fund balance of about minimum $3 million so that I can fund all of these cost reimbursement grants. So here's some of the major grantors that we have right now. The TDC, we have to request our money from them in a grant format each year. The Okaloosa Board of County Commissioners, they get funds from the feds, like the restore money from U.S. Treasury, and they'll funnel down those grant funds to us. DEP is a great funder DOT and Restore through the BOCC, and right now we have American Rescue Plan Act funds in our hands. So the funding for next year from grants is $26 million. And here's how that, the $26 million in grants comes out. So we've got the American Rescue Plan Act money. We've spent some on upgrading our software as a service agreement so that we can get away from some of our on-site servers and move up into the cloud. And that's going to make Compass, it's going to make our business processes a lot faster, and it's going to keep them online a lot better. That's a 3-year agreement. And then the remaining amount, we're looking at investing more into addressing stormwater issues to keep our neighbors' homes from flooding and things like that. So Michael and Lewis have been working really hard on looking at what are the priorities for the stormwater to fix those things. We also have the beach acquisition. At the July meeting, I believe another interlocal agreement is going to come before you where Okaloosa County wants to partner with us for some more beach acquisition. And then we have the Linear Park Trail. We just learned we were awarded $270,000, but it's a matching grant from the state of Florida. So we have to give $270,000 of our dollars to match. And that has actually been in the Town Center CRA's budget for a couple of years, always planned for 2023. So the timing couldn't be more perfect. Let's see, we have the Crosstown Connector. DOT has given us right-of-way grant. We've asked for some more money because we don't quite have enough in that grant to complete the purchases of the places we need to complete that right-of-way. So that's in the process. The Okaloosa County has committed about $3 million towards the construction of the Crosstown Connector when we get there. And then we've also reached out for some more grant funding. In the meantime, I've supplemented what we have with some gas tax number 2 money, which is related to things that are in our comprehensive plan. It's restricted to that. Use and road impact fees, because this is a growth necessitated project. And then we have, funding to be determined to complete the right-of-way acquisition. So that's in process. And then we have some of the other grants. The grant I mentioned, Clement Taylor Park renovation from Restore. And then DEP gives us funding to clean the stormwater cleanouts. And I believe Michael has found a way to do that on an annual basis with the DEP's money at even less than $60,000 a year. So we're very excited about that. They granted us these funds up front, and so we're trying to extend them out and use them as long as we can. And then we have Morgan's family granted us some money, and we're going to upgrade the playground over here at the Morgan's Kid Park next year. So that's a short synopsis of the grants that we have. Oh dear, I pushed the wrong button.
Crystal, what was I've seen that over here.
There we go. What was which one?
I've seen that twice now, the gas tax number 2.
Yeah, okay, so we receive 2 gas taxes from the state of Florida. Gas tax number 1 can go towards operating the Public Works Department and maintaining or replacing, renewing any of our roads, sidewalks, streetlights, all of these items. Gas tax number 2 has different restrictions on it. We can't use it for operating. We have to invest it only in things that are written in our comprehensive plan. So like this Crosstown Connector has been in our comprehensive plan for a while, so we're allowed to spend it on that.
Is that split 50-50 between 1 and 2, the gas tax?
Both of the gas taxes are population-based.
So gas tax 1 and
So,
gas tax 2?
Yeah, gas tax number 1 tends to be about $500,000 a year is the allocation. It's a certain number of pennies based upon our population. Gas tax number 2 comes in at about $200,000 a year because there's a different formula, but it's also a population-based formula.
And Crystal, before you go on, the population is the tax-paying population, not the visitor population.
It's actually, they use the US Census Bureau figures. And you're right, it's not the visiting population of 100-some thousand people, it's the 13,000 year-round residents that they count.
So the unincorporated areas of our city that have residents, we don't get the tax money for that head count.
That's correct, which is really painful for, the roads that we maintain because, they're using them and wearing them and tearing them, but
Right.
we don't, yeah.
Thank you.
So part of capital improvement planning, we've got a couple different types of programs and they have different rules and restrictions on them. As you all know, I started the renewal and replacement program the other year. I'm really excited. I can't wait to see Matrix's details because they're going to show us, for people who live in an HOA, you may have seen your statements and you say, oh, we've got to resurface the pool 5 years from now and it's going to cost this much money, and they start to collect the money and it goes into that particular fund, right? So that's what this renewal and replacement fund is supposed to be, and we're gonna work up to that. So this is a historical new for the city. And then capital improvement program is different from renewal and replacement, but this is for additions to the city, new things that we want, like buying more property for a beach, adding bathrooms, adding facilities. So let me keep up with my notes here because I can't quite see the screens as well. So this is the 5-year program for the renewal and replacement program. Just to put it all in perspective, we spent if you just look at just depreciation, right? With all of the city assets, we're depreciating at about close to $4 million a year with all of the facilities and properties and everything we have. So in theory, if you're a good businessman, right, you'd be investing that somehow, even if it's just into reserve to get ready to replace. Even better, you would look at replacement value, and that's what Matrix is looking at, so that you have the funds there when you need them, or you have them on the horizon so that you know how to financially plan. So this renewal and replacement program, FY23, those are the things that are broken and need fixed right now. Going out 24, 25, 26, 27, we have on a schedule, we know when certain air conditioning units and certain roofs and stucco and different things need to be repaired. So those are projections of things that we believe we might have to repair in that year. So this accounts for 7% of our FY 2023 capital budget, and I'm going to fund this from my projected ending fund balance from this year, plus we're going to add in some gas tax number 1, that's about $530 a year. That all goes towards the roads and the sidewalks and the street lights and so forth. And then we have the parking fund chipping in $96,000 for the paid parking areas that we need to repave or upgrade those little, bumpers, all those types of things. And then we have NPEB money that we're going to invest towards, we have a sluice gate in the harbor, and the NPEB money, as you might recall, it's not technically an impact fee, but we collect it for anybody who builds on the water, and it's supposed to be invested towards enhancing water quality, and we believe fixing this sluice gate will help us address some water quality issues. So NPEB is going to help out replacing that. So that's in the replacement program. And so here's just a little bit more on renewal and replacement. And just to, this is not maintaining, this is not maintenance, this is not little repairs. This is, that roof needs to be replaced, not patched. This HVAC unit is old, they don't supply parts for it anymore, we gotta replace it, we cannot just repair it. So that's what the renewal and replacement program is for. Local option gas tax number 1, so here just I remind everybody of what we're allowed to use this for. The parking fund that we made the motion to restrict the parking fees, and this is for maintaining and keeping up our parking areas. Local option gas tax number 2, not allowed to use it for routine maintenance. has to be for things that are in the comp plan related to transportation. So here we get to the impact fees. All right, so the special words when you talk about using impact fees, and people, I've watched CFOs go down for misusing impact fees all over the state of Florida. Growth necessitated improvements are magic words, and in our land development code, we added we're supposed to use them within 6 years of receipt. So here I have our projected beginning balances for these impact fees. Our projected additions for next year, which I hope are going to be a lot better. We're still working on impact fee studies right now. So things are going to change up a little bit. Don't have those new numbers yet from the people working on them. So I have available to budget, and then I have a column here that's at risk. So these are funds that we collected 6 or more years ago that by next year, we're going to use them, or if we don't, the developers could come back and request them back. So I've budgeted to use at least this amount. So in the next column you can see is what we've scheduled for 2023. And I'd just like to note that 1.6 million of road impact fees is mostly going towards the crosstown connector, which is one of our top priorities. All of the money in this column, this 2.4 million, is going towards, 83% of it is going towards those top council priorities. So it's not just spending them because we have to spend them, it's spending them on things that, really need done. So these are, every month you get that capital project status report from me, and I have that growth necessitated group of projects. So these are just purely growth necessitated projects that are not up in that council. Most of that 2.4 million, as you saw, is going towards council directed projects, but $600,000 of it is going towards some other programs. The Sibbert Zerby parking lot consolidation, won't that be great? We have such issues with parking down there. We have
You
some
may
other-
not know this, but are they staging undergrounding equipment on that undeveloped lot on Cybert?
That's for the median beautification project that DOT is doing right now. So we're waiting for them to complete that. Yeah, 1.9 million of the impact fees is going towards council-directed programs, including the 1.6 million of road impact fees to the crosstown connector. And just here's a little reminder of how we're now planning on spending the Okaloosa halfpenny money, which is coming in at a clip of about 1.6 million a year. So we dropped the beach acquisition part down to 25% and increased undergrounding up to 60%. We got 5% going to the Public Works and Safety Committee. So I'm, for now, until I get further direction, I'm putting it into this transportation safety project number so that they can address safety at the crosswalks and other dangerous areas. So here's the list of those other programs, other projects. So this is another 7% of the budget. So we've got the ARPA money. It's going to go mostly towards stormwater issues, town center, CRA, linear trail, wayfinding, the hurricane response that I mentioned earlier. Then we have some IT items that we need to take care of. I'm going to work again, like I mentioned, with Webb and our new IT director before the July 14th meeting, just to double check, make sure. I think we can bring those numbers down a little bit. NPE DES, we give funding to Choctawhatchee Bay Alliance to keep checking on the water quality. each year. The Morgan's Park, we've got the $23,000 from the Morgan family, and then we're supplementing that with some park impact fee money to improve that children's park over there at Morgan's, the pickleball courts. The Morgan's bathroom, we had that in this year's budget, but it turns out we didn't budget enough. Construction prices and things have gone up. And we were kind of delaying a little bit on pulling the trigger on that Morgan's bathroom, hoping that we could do it in concert with the design, with the pickleball courts and program that we were hoping to do. So since it's getting so late in the year, we're thinking we're just going to move that project up and hopefully accomplish it early next year.
Those prices are coming down.
Right.
That would be great to push it on.
I hope so. We still have our world's luckiest fishing pond in there. I put a little money out into the future, just got to wait for that crosstown connector to happen, right? And then we can think more seriously and get some good estimates on that. Clement Taylor Park renovation, I mentioned, that's mostly funded by a grant. Then we have some stormwater swale work. And then out into the future, I've put some stormwater basin studies that engineering believes would be very beneficial to the city, and the transportation intersection safety funds that is for the public safety committee group to be reviewing and working on. That's a placeholder until we get more details. And so here's some of the underfunded and unfunded projects. We have, we really have these stormwater issues in town. You might have noticed some of those, plates we've put down on Airport Road and Main Street and to keep the streets stable while we address some stormwater issues. And we have some really old stormwater connectors underground that are kind of crumbling. They're used with a material that they probably, seemed like a great idea, I'm sure, at the time, but we need to update. So unfunded is stormwater. We really need to find a way to fund the stormwater and address those issues in the swales throughout the city. And then, of course, the utility undergrounding. And as Councilman Destin says, we really need to come together and have a good talk about exactly what do we want to accomplish with this undergrounding project, how far do we want to go, and do we want to encourage citizens who really want it? Do we need a grassroots movement for them maybe to ask for a little bit of a special assessment if they want their neighborhoods done or something? So anyway, the undergrounding, it just needs another close look. So here we are back at the beginning. So that 1.7 million is what I project would be the addition to fund balance if we adopt that rate of 1.615 again. So do we want to invest all of that 1.7 million into capital projects? As you saw, I've invested 1.8 million, so we're dipping into fund balance by about $100,000. Or do we want to shorten that list? And or do we want to lower the millage rate a little bit and cut the general funded capital projects even more? So that's, I'm going to let you guys just please speak your thoughts, give me what you're thinking about, and keep in mind, I'm going to encourage everybody, keep talking to me over the course of the next few weeks. On July 11th, I'll be publishing another round of these figures for a July 14th capital budget workshop again, so that we can come together after you've had time to digest this and look through all these details that you've received and really come back with your recommendations.
Crystal, I was looking at, if we were to drop the millage rate, if you're a $100,000 home, it's $10 a year. If it's $490,000, it's 70-something a year. That doesn't really make that big of an impact when it's an annual savings to a homeowner. But the amount of money the city makes and can do with that money, I think we should leave it where it's at. That's just my opinion.
I agree. Just like we said a while ago, we're accommodating 100,000 people, during the summer, and then a lot more than 14,000 people all year. So I don't think the whole giving up the funds for the population is really fair in our situation. So yeah, I would keep it where it's at.
Sorry, Mr. Wagner, are you still with us?
Yep, I am. I was just didn't want to overstep on anyone. Yeah, I agree. For one of the first points that was brought up, we can always bring it down, but it takes several years to go up. And at the Florida League of Cities, we kind of went through some of these scenarios of good time, bad time over the course of 1-2 decades of a city. And, you really get in a pinch if we try to be good stewards and bring it down for the sake of everyone. But, if we hit another value drop like the other mountain that you see in that graph, it really is hard to come back from it. So we really could be setting ourselves up for a double down in the negative side of things. If things were to go back down and the rates are now lower, you can't just bump them back up. So for that reason, I think we should keep them the same, as well as most people are homesteaded, and that average home price really, for people who have lived here more than a decade, is almost a completely different universe of pricing. Even my house in 2019 was $244 I closed at, and now we're up to that average. So while anyone, whether they're here a day or they've been here a lifetime, is a citizen, I think a lot of people have been here a while that are the longtime locals. So I think that little bit of change isn't going to hurt the majority of people. It will just affect the most of the people coming in, and they're coming in knowing what these prices are, knowing what those expenses are moving into Destin. So I don't think it's a sticker shock to them as they make the decision to move into our community. So I really think having it at the rate that we're at is a great spot, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner, and I think I would agree. There's no sentiment, I think, to go down on the millage rate. We probably all think it should stay the same. The one point I would make, though, is all of these capital projects, all these proposed spendings are the recommendation of the staff. The ultimate decision about what's going to be spent on what lies with the council. So if you have some ideas that would change or readjust any of this, we'll all be talking to Crystal over the next few weeks, and then we'll have our next budget workshop on the 11th, and then we'll talk to her as individuals. And so, I suggest everybody be thinking very seriously, if you have some changes you want to be made, to start talking to management about it. Any other questions, observations, City Manager?
Nothing other than if you wanted that 75 to go into the council contingency and away from where it was listed on there.
Well, of course, I think it's in the proper place right now on contingency. That way, we'll have to have an extension to move it out. Anybody? Of course, we don't make decisions at these workshops, but I think that's probably, I think everybody's happy with the way it is at the moment.
Yeah, and last thing, I think after, I don't know what ranking we are, but we're definitely one of the lowest millage rates in the state of Florida. So I think that's something to be proud of, especially with conservative values. And while our average may be a little bit higher than most, being that low, we definitely are staying true to our core beliefs. So I think it's a great stance to keep it there.
It is, and we have a section under the agenda here for comments. You guys in the public have any comments? Please come forward.
Thank you, Crystal, for the nice job, Crystal. Thank you for the presentation and the update.
Mayor and Council, thank you. Jim Wood, 3790 Misty Way. I had a couple of questions as I was going through the slides. It comes to my time on the TPO, the Table 2 priority slide. I saw that the Destin connector was back on that now, off of the fully funded slide it was on before. I was told that the city just asked them to move it back onto the Table 2 so we could ask for more money. I don't know if that's right or not, that's what I was told. And that slide shows $1.6 million for 3 years coming from the county, TDD, whomever, for a total of 4.8. The slide also here showed 3.3. Why is there a difference? I'd like to get the slides to say the same thing, so I don't see different numbers every place I go.
Any of you guys have an explanation for him?
I would be happy to look into that,
Okay.
Mr. Wood, without it right in front of me.
Yeah, and I didn't-
There have been some changes.
I didn't know I was going to get up and talk, so I didn't bring it with me, so.
No problem.
Jeffrey's been following the TPOs, and he's here, and he might have an answer for us.
Yeah, I did ask the TPO to move that to the unfunded because I knew that there was a change that you spoke about earlier, and that's a commitment from the TDC, but that commitment got changed when we started working with them at beach acquisition, so that number got reduced. And then I also knew that there was a gap between what we need, what we have and what we will need to make all the acquisitions. So I asked them to move that back to the, not fully funded list, because there might be an opportunity down the road to get some additional funding from them to help complete that project.
Thank you. The 6.5 million, I believe I saw for CRAs going to undergrounding. I'm trying to rack my brain on what we did when I was on the council. I don't remember the CRAs ever having any money. So what changed?
This is, we can take the tax incremental financing and the revised master plan to finance people to get those funds. So I've been sharing with each of the two CRA committees. I've been bringing their financial projections out through their sunset years, and they have a lot of money that they need to invest. So that's where that comes from.
Wish we would have done something like that years ago, so that's good, thank you. Annexation. I don't know if I sent an email, I don't know if you got it or Mr. Z about I think it's Diamond Lakes. One of their homeowners approached me about annexation, and I didn't have any procedures to give to them, so I don't know if you got something that we can pass to them.
Yes, we are in the process right now of preparing a response.
Okay.
However, it's going to be in a more global fashion to the manager so that we have a much more comprehensive approach to any requests that come to the city as opposed to having knee-jerk ad hoc reaction.
Okay, and as we've done our gas tax numbers, has anybody looked at what if we get the gas tax holidays, how it's going to affect those numbers? So, and lastly, I guess, and I guess I had heard about this before, possible neighborhoods asking for special assessments to do the undergrounding. And the only question I want to ask is, my neighborhood is already undergrounding. Now, every year when I pay my house insurance, I pay $400 into the Florida Insurance Fund so that other folks who either don't pay their insurance or don't want to pay their insurance can get theirs paid. I guess, since my neighborhood is already done, will we be forced to do an assessment to pay for somebody else? Is my question.
No, if there are no enhancements to your property, you cannot be assessed under a special
That's what I thought I
assessment. Those
understood.
are
I wanted
the
to make
rules.
sure. Okay.
That's
Good.
correct.
Okay, and the only thing else I'd like to mention, so we have a captive audience. I've been trying to start a conversation for a while now, and it kind of isn't going anywhere, about a future new Marlar Bridge. And of course, the new Brooks Bridge is going to start later this year. The bridge is going to be taller, therefore longer. If you apply that same standard to the Marlar Bridge, we have a lot of room on the Okaloosa side to start wherever you want. But if a new bridge flies over Calhoun, Stallman, and the Emerald Grand for any reason, we will create traffic problems of monumental, epic proportions. The number of U-turns that will go on, traffic will come to a grinding halt. So how that future bridge goes, and I say that because there's a corridor study going on right now from the bridge to Airport Road again. And supposedly in that study, there's going to be some comments about how a bridge might affect and play into that process. I don't know what it's going to say yet. I always want us to stay on top of that and not get surprised and be masters of our own destiny and not be like a Brooks Bridge that took 25 years to plan a replacement for a bridge. That's what I'm afraid of. I mean, our bridge is done well, it's maintained well, it has high ratings, so potentially it's not going anywhere for a while. And, you know, there's many bridges in the state that need help, ours doesn't. But one day it's going to need to be replaced. And being masters of our own destiny is a better way to go than be a catcher receiving somebody else's pitch. So let's make sure, hopefully we're on the ball, and if something is said, written, verbal, whatever, that we're in the know on that and have our thoughts included. I'd appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Could I,
Jim, I have a question. Are they raising that Brooks Bridge because that's I don't know if it's called a shipping lane because of the tugboats and stuff come through there? Is that why?
Yeah,
And we don't have that under the Destin Bridge?
I guess I was always told that I guess that's a Coast Guard standard. I guess the Brooks Bridge was it 50 feet, and now it's 65 feet is the standard. So you got to raise it basically 15 feet, which makes it, depending how you design it.
So it doesn't matter if it's a shipping lane or
Not that I
tugboat?
know of.
So it's just, I got
Yeah,
it.
it's not that I'm aware of, so, thank you. Anything else, sir?
could sorry, could I just respond real quick to the chair, chair of the LPA, regarding the upcoming study for the PD&E study on 98, which will include the bridge. My staff and I are currently compiling a set of issues as part of the mobility plan update, which we'll give to the council in August, I believe. That will include what we think, including the issues that he just raised, that we need you to formally, as a council, allow us to raise with the DOT when that study is conducted. So we're on top of it, Chair. As a matter of fact, that will be an issue at our next LPA meeting, so you can add that issue to it. So we're on top of it.
That's right. I hadn't planned on speaking, and I may be maybe speaking a little out of turn, and I think you'll understand what I'm talking about when I get through this. I'm a part of the Town Center CRA. Oh, I'm sorry, Michelle Sandstead of Destin, Florida. I have been a member of the Town Center CRA since Jim appointed me, whenever that was, a long time ago. And unfortunately, had not been able to get a whole lot accomplished during that time for a variety of reasons, one of them being a problem with quorums. And I know this is a bit budgeting committee, but like Jim says, I have a captive audience. I'd like to encourage all the members of council, and I don't know who is appointed and who hasn't, I have no idea, to get us some members. We had one meeting last year. We have just found out from Crystal and all of her hard work that we actually have $700,000 we can spend, but we can't even talk about how to even spend it because we don't have a quorum to ever meet. We met, the last time we met was in May. We had a meeting this past June, or we're supposed to, no quorum. When you have one member can't come, there's no meeting. So that's just something I'd like to reach out to the council to just, if you haven't, please try to help us out there. The other thing I did bring up at the meeting, and this has not officially been approved from the minutes because of the last meeting, that we didn't have a quorum. I talked about my concerns about not having funds to get some projects done. the CRA does not have an identity. Our town center really doesn't. The harbor does. Everybody knows what that is. And we've got some great ideas. The members that do participate have some great ideas about what it could be. And one of them has been tossed around about an arts district. Destin really doesn't have an arts district. And I've had the ability through things my husband and I have done on our own of knowing some artists and all that. There is a desire for that in our area. So we'd like to be able to pursue that, whatever it is. But the thing I brought up at the meeting was that we do have limited funds because of this debt that was acquired way back in the very beginning. And my question was, y'all are working on budgets. And Mr. Z actually said that somebody from our committee, which should have been Lockwood, be in here to present this probably, because he's the chair of the committee, I'm just the co-chair. But I'd like to see, if it's possible, if there's any funds out there that's not been spoken for, discretionary funds, that can be tossed our way to help us do some of the things we want to do, because some of our ideas do cost money. That's really all I've got to say. Like I said, it's not been approved through the minutes because we didn't have a meeting, and Lockwood's not here, but I just thought I'd get up and speak. Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time to wait through this process and talk to us. I'm sure we will be able to work toward fixing your problem for lack of quorum. I'll look at who my appointee was, and everybody else will too. So that's the first step toward
That's our first step.
fixing the problem. After that, then you can make recommendations and requests,
Exactly.
and hopefully
We
we'll
can
be
the
able to work
advisory
with you.
committee we're designed to
Yep.
be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, if that's all the public comment we have and council is through. Mr. Wagner, you still there? Is there anything else you would like to say? We lost him. Okay, in that case, I will adjourn the meeting.